Nana Visitor's new book, Strange New Worlds news, and the Hollywood writers' strike continues into its third week.
This is Trek Zone's Sci-Fi News.
The Star Trek news you need to know now. Nana Visitor has announced on Twitter that she's penning a book about the women of Star Trek and their cultural effect. To be titled Open a Channel, we don't yet know a publisher or release target. But the call out has been made. She's looking for people in the medical field and were inspired by Star Trek. Or if anyone was inspired by the women of the Enterprise, reach out to Nana. Have a look on her Twitter for the details. The real-time multiplayer strategy and role-playing mobile game Star Trek Fleet Command has transwarped into the Delta Quadrant, with a Voyager story arc available now through to August 2023. Players can find 25 new missions, new characters, assets and artifacts, as well as the Delta Quadrant itself unlocked as a location. Crave, the Canadian broadcaster of Star Trek, has released 2 promos and then removed them. One of the promos featured imagery from the Strange New Worlds Lower Decks crossover app, as well as another trailer which saw the Enterprise orbiting an alien world. Lian and Kirk also witnessed an explosion in another shot, seemingly part of their time travel story. I would say that they've released a little too much than they should have. Well, the latest issue of SFX magazine features an interview with Strange New Worlds co-showrunner Akiva Goldsman, whom avoided spoilers but did confirm a few details. Quote, "What we're dealing with is Lieutenant Kirk, First Officer Kirk. We're not dealing with Captain Kirk, and there's opportunity there. Paul Wesley is really wonderful to me, a hybrid of Shatner's Kirk and his own. That is, of course, serviced by this moment in the Kirk timeline where he's dating Carol Marcus, so you'll see." The pitch for Season 2 was to do more than Season 1, including a comedic crossover with Lower Decks, having been tuned with LD's showrunner Mike McMahon to make it feel legit. On the point of canon, Goldsman said there's pieces that are still dark that we're filling in. Having said that, he says, we will body check canon when we need to, and we have. We've moved some folks around in terms of timelines. We've put some folks together who aren't necessarily canonically together at the same time. We pull some things forward because ultimately story wins. IDW Publishing have taken us back to the 1970s and the beginning of the Star Trek movie era with Echoes, the 5-part series set immediately after the credits roll on that first movie journey. It's written by Mark Guggenheim, who created the Arrow and Legends of Tomorrow TV series over at the CW. Artwork is provided by Oleg Chudakov, with colours by DC Alonso. Star Trek Online's lead designer Al Rivera sat down with Trek News to discuss the longevity of the game, now entering its 13th year of circulation. The biggest point of pride for the team is to now have the Enterprise F in canon, appearing in Picard almost 9 years since STO first introduced us to the next ship of the line. Rivera noting that the entire development team are dedicated Star Trek fans, commenting on 2 distinct eras for the massively multiplayer online role-playing game before and after Discovery. He says that STO carried the official torch for Star Trek during that fallow time, and the new series gave a breath of fresh air for fans, he says, and also for development, with a new vein of untapped ships and stories to tell. Catch the full written interview over at Trek News now. Writers continue to picket the studios as the bitter stalemate continues in Hollywood. Residuals are the biggest sticking point, with a decade of changes to the consumption of media essentially stifling pay packets by as much as 23%, according to the Writers Guild of America. The WGA says this is an existential crisis, with smaller writers' rooms and artificial intelligence 2 more areas of concern. There's certainly a level of nuance and detail here that I can't pretend to understand without a guest beaming in for a Trek Zone conversation. But I do know that the strike means writers have walked off the job, and that's going to delay production of all scripted content. This won't impact Strange New Worlds Season 2 though, which is already completed. Prodigy showrunner Aaron Waltke tweeting as well that they're covered by the Animation Guild, which had a similar negotiation period last year. Fair wages for profitable shows is always a reasonable ask, he says, and I couldn't agree more. Well, we are podcasting on YouTube and across every podcast app. Find each of TrekZone's shows on Google or Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and more. Plus, TrekZone's channel in the iTunes library gives you a one-stop shop for all of our goodness. So jump on to your favourite podcast app, find TrekZone, and subscribe. On YouTube, membership continues to be available. Early access for less than a cup of coffee per month. Add in behind the scenes of our next Star Trek fan film for the same price as a streaming service. But this way you get a direct, tangible benefit, and my thanks. And of course, our social media feeds always have the week's podcast highlights and Star Trek episodes. This is our 20th year to the world. We are TrekZone, going boldly since 2003.